Well, good evening, fellow Toastmasters. As I mentioned before, my name is Derek Craddock, and it's my pleasure to be bringing you this presentation, speech, workshop, whatever you want to call it. That's talking about the perfect play-by-play, or as Lynn mentioned, let's play some hockey. Now, play-by-play encompasses a lot of sports, virtually every sport, including poker and all that, has some form of play-by-play. So my goal that for this presentation, I'm just going to move this here, much better. So for this presentation, I'll be sharing, first of all, how I got into the world of play-by-play broadcasting, how you can create a powerful and memorable experience. That includes the importance of researching, doing your homework, when you can get excited and when you gotta tone it down a bit. Knowing your audience behind the mic and the audience in front of you. And also to have fun. Play-by-play and sports broadcasting is incredibly fun. So let's begin with my story here. So my story of play-by-play actually begins, well, my first experience was when I was studying at Bible College in Three Hills, but before that, it was just me, a controller, a television in my basement with Madden NFL on the PlayStation 2. That's how I entertained myself many nights and many days, was doing my own play-by-play. I mute it, or I'd turn the commentators off, and I would call my own game. Some people think that's bizarre, but I was having the time of my life. When I was a kid, I really got into sports around the time I was 12, 13 years old. And when I was 14, a lot of broadcasters really piqued my interest. I love the sports moments, the games and everything, the World Series, the Stanley Cup, etc. But the announcers was what really gripped me more than anything else. And some of my favorite announcers are the likes of Joe Buck, who's currently with ESPN and Monday Night Football. Al Michaels, who's been doing it for an eternity now. He's covered the World Series, the Olympics, football, I think the World Cup of Soccer, could be wrong. And then the likes in hockey, Bob Cole, the former Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster, Harry Neal was his color commentator, and Rick Jeanneret. And to give you some examples, please work. On your left here is a call from Joe Buck in the 2004 American League Championship Series, which is not playing through the sound there. Oh, you know what? I will not turn up the volume.
Colin, how do you do that?
I think you have to do it before he started sharing, right?
Okay, no need. For the sake of time, I'm not going to worry about that. But like I said, on the left there was a call from the 2004 American League Championship Series and Joe Buck. That game, the Boston Red Sox won it in extra innings to send it to game 4. If they had lost that game, they would have been out. And if you know your sports, you know that the Red Sox eventually won that series, won the World Series for the first time in almost 90 years. The call on the right there, the late Rick Jeanneret from the Buffalo Sabres, one of his most famous calls was after Brad McMay scored in overtime. And to the delight of Rick, he just uttered the words, Mayday, 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 over and over again. It became such a classic call in broadcasting lore. Now, okay, now it's wanting to play, which I am not going to let it play. No. Again, technology is amazing. Okay, so let's go back to Bible College. Like I said, this is where I got my first ever experience in the world of play-by-play. During my time there, this was my 3rd year at this college in Three Hills, I got to know this one woman who ran a local missions organization. We talked during a conference that was held at the college, and I got to know her very well. She was very interested in what I was studying at the college, which was a Bachelor of Arts at the time. But then she found out that I love sports, to which she said, so does my husband. Eventually, I got to know her and her family. We were invited over to their house where they were hosting kind of an information session for their mission organization. And then I got to know her husband, Dan, who I found out was the director of PBC Radio, the Bible College radio station, which had been there for over a century. The school celebrated its centennial not long ago. So the radio station, back in the day, it was broadcasted through the campus, through the dorm rooms, the chapel, the sermons, the old school gospel music, all was played through these speakers. And eventually it grew to include more community events and sports broadcasts. And that's where Dan kind of came into the picture there. We shared some of the same interests in terms of our favorite broadcasters, who we liked, who we didn't like, what we knew how to do and not do. And before long, he invited me over. He wanted me to do color commentating for some high school basketball games. And then before long, I was asked to do play-by-play for men's futsal. That's a form of indoor soccer, as well as a high school basketball. And let me tell you, after I did that, I knew this had to be a part of my life somehow. This was not just me in front of the TV on a video game. Like, this is real life. I was calling a game, as small as it was. I was calling it. People were listening, and I was so excited doing it. Some of the experiences in my life, very quickly, I worked as a color commentator and play-by-play broadcaster for the Calgary Canucks of the Alberta Junior Hockey League. I did men's and women's hockey and volleyball while I was studying at SAIT in Calgary. I'm also a backup voice for men's and women's hockey for the University of Saskatchewan Huskies, and that's me on November 4th when I broadcasted a women's hockey game at the U of S at Merlis Belcher Place. Okay, what makes a good play-by-play? A lot of things. Point number one, do your research. That quote there, I don't know who said it, but I love it because it's so true. Now, for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to be talking specifically about hockey broadcast. A lot of the skills can be interchangeable between the different sports, but for this, hockey is going to be the main focus. Most importantly, you can't just wing it on a play-by-play broadcast. You can't just go in and say, oh, I know hockey. I know he shoots, he scores. This will be easy. Doesn't work that way. You have to know the players. You have to memorize their names, memorize their jersey numbers, the correct pronunciation, know the coaches and any other key figures of the game, trainers, volunteers, parents, even if they've got a great story. You want to look for those special stats and also look for anecdotes, kind of different stories that you can tell about each player, something that makes them unique. My friend Rob Mann, who used to be the voice for the Prince Albert Raiders, he always wrote this out by hand, never typed it. That helped him remember the name, number, anecdote. I had another friend of mine who currently works in Medicine Hat, uses flashcards, number on one side, player on the other. That helped him remember. So again, research is important. Point two, watch your excitement levels. Unfortunately, this clip, I'm not getting the sound here, but you may have seen this a few weeks ago. It is a play-by-play voice for the Verdun Oil Kings in Manitoba. He got a little carried away, got a little too excited, and pretty much gave a very viral call. Essentially had said, after this goal was scored, he said the words, look at this, look at that. Oh, you gave them the old banana splitter Rooney. Everyone's just happy. That's what he said. And it went viral. However, I'm recommending you do not do that. You can be excited. Yes, it is exciting, please. But don't be tempted to get too excited because you'll lose focus of what's in hand, and that is the game. A lot of play-by-play voices don't have this excitement. They have adrenaline running, yes, but they're not so excited that you, again, lose focus, because it's not about you, It's about the game in front of you and letting your audience know what's happening. You also can damage your vocal cords. You do not want to do that. Now, this takes time. You're not going to get it right away. You have to play with your levels. One game, you could be very excited. That happened to me. You get too excited, and then you realize maybe I should tone it down next game. And you just kind of work with it. Eventually, you'll find your happy place. Number three, know your audience. What works for a professional hockey game might not always work for, say, the junior level, the college level, and vice versa. So an example was when I broadcasted with the Calgary Canucks, it was on an online platform called Hockey TV. And many of the viewers that subscribed to this service were family, they were friends, other relatives, even some scouts from universities. These people want to hear about their son or daughter, their brother, sister, nephew, niece. They want to hear about that. So talk them up. Know who is listening to these games. You also have to know the difference between radio and television broadcasts here. My experience has been radio. For example, do not say the words, "Did you just see that?" on a radio broadcast. That has been done on TSN radio, and it drove me insane. So again, remember the audience. Remember who you're talking to. Related to that point is to gauge the crowd. Now, many setups will have a separate microphone to capture crowd noise, and this is very important, especially if you're listening on the radio. You want to feel like you are there. You want to feel like you are a part of the crowd. Now, I understand that some crowds can be small. If you're covering some junior games, some college university games, they definitely can be small. Doesn't matter how big or small that they are. You can still use them to your advantage because they're there, ready to watch the game. They're passionate. They've got their noise bangers. They've got their horns, their bells, everything. They're cheering, and you can use that to your advantage. Definitely know the crowd around you, know who's excited. In one case, you can even reach out to people in the crowd. You can talk about, hey, there's a Timbits team that's watching this game. How cool is that? Hey, look at this team that's come all the way from Warman. That's cool. They're watching, their idols. Maybe they could be on the ice one day too. So again, it's gauging the crowd. It's knowing who's around you and using them in your broadcast. Finally, have fun. Oh, baby. That's Bob Cole, former Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster, one of his most famous lines in almost every goal that he's ever done. Now, I say this from experience and also knowing that there was a lot of friends of mine that just didn't have this experience or don't have this experience. Few students leave, a broadcasting school and get to have play-by-play experiences. They dreamed about it. They've maybe tried, but for whatever reason, they can't always get in there. So that's another reason to have fun, is just knowing that you're doing something that's like a dream for many people. You also want to be able to make connections. That's how I got involved with Husky Fan, which is the website that broadcasts the Huskies men's and women's hockey and football games. I got to know the director there, and he brought me on to do a couple games, and then I'm their backup. In case they need someone to call games, they call me first. Many of the, that's another one. The adrenaline and rush of calling hockey games, I think I mentioned this before, is just something that you cannot put into words. It is exciting. It really just puts you on a whole other level. So again, having fun is just really important. No one wants to hear a dull hockey announcer. I have, and just makes me want to run through the TV or the radio station and try to take their job. Again, I wish that this link would have worked, but I did have one of my broadcasts from Husky Women's Hockey earlier this year, but with the sound issues, I won't be able to play that. But yeah, I want to leave it up for anyone who maybe has any questions.
What's your future now? Going forward?
I get asked that quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, my future right now is really up in the air because anything can happen in the radio industry. You know, I didn't think that we would be living in Saskatchewan, let alone Prince Albert, but I was approached with a job opportunity about 2.5 years ago. And, we took it because of what it would mean for our family. But I know that a couple of years down the road, or even a couple of months down the road, I could be offered another job. So in regards to, what the future is, yeah, it is definitely still in the radio business. I would love to be full-time play-by-play. But at the same time, I know that it's hard with family and raising kids. It's a big commitment. You got to give up evenings, weekends. You're traveling, sometimes across country. It's tough. One thing I know is that I won't ever lose that passion. I'll always find ways to do it. And, the advances of the internet make it easy to be involved in sports broadcasting in many different ways. There's a lot of minor teams here that have signed on with smaller companies. I think the Northern Bears have a company that does their play-by-play online. So there's always opportunities.
Where do I get to hear one of these play-by-plays that you do?
So, like I said,
During the break, we'll put it on.
yeah, we're trying to put it on here. So
That's you?
this is me. Yeah, that's me.
Ooh, okay, yes.
Huskyfan.ca is where I broadcasted the University of Saskatchewan games, and they have a link to the replays of the play-by-plays for the last couple seasons. So that's where you can hear some of that.
All right, we'll listen to that during the break.
All right, we will. Any questions? Yes, no? Perfect. Well, thank you very much.